Welcome to a special edition of Puck Talk CS. Matthew Mugno alongside my co-host Steve Murno. We're here to break down the Olympics, mostly from the angle of Team USA. We got a lot to talk about today. Top five players internationally in the tournament. Top five players for the United States. Have they been good? What's up with Team Canada? Thoughts on that juggernaut? And overall, just topics about this great Olympic session. And Steve, it's funny when I sub teach kids. I know you're teaching now too a little bit. The kids have never seen it in Olympics. Like we saw Sochi together in 2014. That was when we first met. It's really cool to finally get back to talking about international hockey on the world stage.
Yeah, I mean, this is great. A little different. The kids that I'm teaching wouldn't be watching the Olympics anyways. But I this is great, man. I mean, I feel like a kid again. You know, when we were in middle school, I mean, bringing back these vibes. I mean, it's fantastic. So I can't wait to talk about this. What a ball this is going to be. So let's talk some puck. This is literally like our Stanley Cup. The way that this is such a lost season for the Rangers. So let's get into it. Let's talk some puck, dude.
I think I got to censor you on that using that word around here right now. So, yeah, no range. We will mention the Rangers only if it has to do with Sully, Torts, Quinn, Miller, or Trocheck. But all right, let's start, Steve. Do you want to start USA or international here?
Let's go with USA. Let's
All right, let's
talk.
start with USA.
Let's go with your first talking point here.
Yeah, I want to ask you actually. So first, what do you think? Good, bad, or just right for Team USA? Like, do you think this is exactly where they should be? You think this is Aaron on the side of bad? Or are you kind of treading above the water of the doomsday preppers?
I think right now USA is right where they need to be. I think they didn't come out and they haven't been blowing their opponents away like Canada has. But I think coming off our most recent game, we look connected. There really was no nerve wracking moment at all. Yes, I do think if there is a ugly, I think that we've come out and we have looked a little bit like that censored word I'm not supposed to say. And for some reason, we're starting games in the first period off a little slow. But overall, we've come back, we've rebounded, we took care of business. There again, like I said, there really was no nerve wracking moment. I think all four lines have played well. We look like the second best team in the tournament. We could circle here, and I'm going to highlight a few guys, but I really do think as of right now, it's all minor stuff that need to be cleaned up before we get into the do or die games. But I think USA right now is right where it needs to be. If they could come out and start games a little bit stronger, yes, I think the main concern there is like playing down the competition. Obviously where we are much better than the teams we've played in the competition that we've gone up against. But I think all around, from the last game that we've seen, things were cleaned up. It seems like the chemistry is starting to click. I'm feeling much more confident. So no, I'm not sounding any alarm bells right now. I think definitely supporting USA. I'm feeling confident. So I'm gonna flip it back to you. Do you agree? Good, bad, just right? What are you thinking?
Maybe building off of what you said, I actually think it might be about urgency. Yeah, right now, listen, Team Canada, Team USA, they've played some teams in their groups that, are growing internationally, and it's great to see, but we know that they're not playing like a power. So, with that stated, I'd like to see, I don't think it's a bad thing that if the United States, which we'll get to much later in the episode, but for right now, this conversation of where the team's at, um, it might be a good thing if they face some pressure in the quarterfinal. They advance past that first round tomorrow, Tuesday, and they play the winner of Sweden, Latvia on Wednesday. Uh, I think if they play in a situation where there's a little more pressure, maybe that will bring out the best of some of the players we haven't seen the most out of yet. Although I'd argue we're going to get to our top five guys for Team USA and internationally in a moment. Yeah, I think Team USA, I'm not going to say just right, just for the sake of truly believing this is their best. But I think they're like just where they need to be. I don't think it's been bad. To me, bad would be losing one of these games in your groups, right? That would be a complete upset and honestly an embarrassment for them on the world stage. So yeah, I'm going to say just right. Like I don't think they're they've been great. But I also think they've answered the bell, and maybe when the pressure's on and there's an urgency, we'll see the best out of them.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think there's been, and of course, it's because of the level of competition and how seriously, the excitement is around this U.S. team. And I think the expectation, especially from people I've seen online, is that, yeah, we haven't looked the best, but I don't think I'm going to be in the same boat as you. I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. I think it's just right. It might take a game or two to get everybody on the same page, fix up the minor things. And I think we're more than capable of coming out there and giving a better performance as the sense of urgency in these do or die games start to pick up. So I agree with that. I want to ask you really quick. I'm curious before we start getting into individual players. If you had to get a USA jersey, what player would you get?
I feel like that always kind of signifies an investment of what players you truly believe in or entertain you the most. Has to be Brady Kachuk right now. What about you, Steve?
Yep, that's what I'm getting to. Just
I feel like that's a no doubter right now, right?
yeah, of course. Especially uh, after everything we saw after Four Nations and then the excitement and energy around this team. I'm with you, man. I'm getting him. Convo for another day, but boy, what I would give up to get him on this, get us on our team. But let's get into player performances now. Let's get into our
Yeah.
specific players. So you start us off.
All right, you want to go Team USA or overall?
Let's go. Stick with USA for now.
All right, let's stick with the USA. It's funny. I actually didn't write out my list. A little busy this morning getting rosters ready for next weekend, but I think it's Brady number one. I'm literally writing it right now. Um, but it's funny. Like obviously, it's in your head. Um, two. I'm gonna go Quinn Hughes. I know he was already going to be a plus and an addition to this team. I think the way he's playing right now, he's going to translate the best into the rest of the tournament compared to anyone else on the team. Three, sorry, phone's going off too right now. What's going on, man? Sorry.
No, you're
Um,
good.
th-
I'm with you though. I don't have mine written down either. So
I'm going
um,
one Brady, two Hughes, Quinn Hughes. It's tough because there's so many surprises, which we're also going to talk about later in the episode. But three Eichel, I think he's starting to take the mantle as arguably one of the best players that represents the United States of America. Um, four, I wouldn't say Mac Chuck stood out to me, so I don't know if I include him in top five.
I wouldn't put him in the top five. No,
Um,
I'm with you on that.
I'm gonna go a shocker, Jack Hughes at four and five. Who rounds out my top five? Gosh, I really don't want to look back at this and regret any of my answers. So I'm gonna go actually wrong to say AM34 in this economy. I'm gonna go Austin Matthews despite all the criticism. Steve-O, my top five: Brady, Quinn Hughes, Eichel, Jack Hughes, AM34. I want to hear your top five.
Cool. When I was thinking about this, I didn't really have a particular order of the top five, but I have
Gotcha.
Brady in there for sure, 100%. Jack
I think
Eichel's in.
he's like a head above the rest.
Yeah, I would say that. Yeah, for sure. If I had to pick a number one, I would put him as a number one. Just the energy and the excitement. Aside from any play on the ice, I think just having that out there is such an X factor for this team. I have to go with Jack Eichel, of course. I'm going to agree with you 100% on Jack Hughes. I honestly, if I were ranking them, I would put Jack Hughes up there. I'd even put him at three. I think he looks good. His speed is so fun to watch. And man, when he's healthy, and when he's on his game, I think he's one of those guys that you really sit there and hold your breath when he has the puck in open space. You look at last year in the Four Nations, he was very invisible, a player that we sat here on the pod and even watching it together that we criticized very heavily. And I think that he's been very good so far. Now, yes, like I said, US is not really playing the best of competition right now. But he is playing. I think he's playing very good. Eichel's playing very well. I think he's looking like the Eichel we've seen from a couple years ago. I think Eichel easily is a top 15 guy. I think he's been solid defensively as well. And I'm going Austin Matthews as well. I think a lot of people want to sit here and criticize him. There were a lot of question marks whether he would perform well in the Olympics. I think he's risen to the occasion so far. And we all know him. And last year he struggled with his footing a little bit in the Four Nations as well. I think he struggled in the first game in the Olympics. He kind of didn't have his footing right. But since then, I think he's been great. All eyes will be on him come playoffs time in the NHL. Because he's really got to shed the big game struggles, acquisitions. But I think he's been fantastic. I really do think that moving forward for the U.S., I think Austin Matthews will be such a big X factor. I think he really can rise to the occasion. And again, let's not remember, this is a guy who scored 70 goals in the NHL. He's won an MVP. He could really reach that level and change things for US. So I got to put him on there put him on that list so far. Other notables, I think that on the defensive side of things, I think US has looked pretty good. Thompson has looked good. I like Nelson and Hughes. I think the bottom six has looked good for US. I think that is really a strength for us. So yeah, that was in no particular order. I'll let you react to whatever I said. What are you thinking?
I concur, and I want to throw another question your way,
Okay,
Steve,
sure.
just off the dome here. And this is one I think that is really taking over the conversation with this Team USA roster. Who needs to step up? We know this isn't top gear for this team. Who needs to step up?
For me, easily, I think it's Kyle Connor. This is not a guy who I think is moving the needle offensively. I think he's not really been noticeable, kind of invisible for me. Still a very talented player, but I don't think we can sit here and debate this. I don't think he's a top 20 NHL player. Kind of disappointed in his play. Yeah, given the Jets do suck, and I know people say the same thing about JT Miller and say oh, he shouldn't even made the roster, even though the Rangers are kind of in the same position. They stink. Oh, I said the word. Oops. But yeah, that's who I got. I'm curious if you agree, concur. What do you say?
A few guys for a few different reasons. I don't think Tage Thompson's been used to the maximum that we can see him utilized on a roster. Like, I do think that argument's fair because I think he could be a huge impact player when it comes down to the line. 6'6". He's got hands of silk. He's a goal scorer. He's won on this stage before, scoring a golden goal at the World Championships last year. So yeah, I think Tage Thompson's a player that actually it's more on the side of the coaching staff utilizing him more. Kyle Connor, I think, is a great one too, right? Like this guy can score at will. He's fast. Why is that not translating to the world stage and a world stage that is actually contoured more now for NHL players? The rink's not as wide, so it's not like it has to do with the
Yeah.
parameters
Does
of
he
the
only have
rink
one
or
point? I think he only has one
he didn't
point.
even play last game.
Yeah.
I don't think he has a point.
Yeah. So
Um,
disappointing. I agree.
yeah, I think in terms of step up is elevating. Um, I'm going to say Matt Kachuk. He has 5 assists. He's tied for the lead in assists. Where's the big goal? Like I think that's maybe his impact if he can get there. If not, certainly on it with his physicality. Obviously, Brady's has stood out so much. The chirp to Dreisaitl. Um, but yeah, I'm gonna say in terms of step up or elevate their play. I'm also gonna say Slavin and Faber. I think those are two guys that like right now it doesn't affect the game when you're winning 5-1 if you're maybe not blocking shots, clogging lanes. I've been impressed by their play, but at Four Nations, their play was extremely noticeable when they played Canada because they really shut things down on defense. I think they're gonna have to step up and do that again.
Yeah, I agree with you. I reason I said defense, I think the defense has been fine, but again, when you're winning, 4-1, 5-1, the defense could kind of lay it back a little bit. As we step up and play, tougher competition here, yeah, I agree with you. I think the defense is obviously gonna have to play much better. So I'm excited to see where this group of guys goes moving forward. I think if there's another big question mark, or not question mark, but kind of, oh, you could say question mark, or kind of a something to watch moving forward. I think goaltending, is something to look at for sure. Obviously, you look at Swayman and game he had, and Hellebuck. Obviously, I think Hellebuck is another guy we circled. Austin Matthews. I think Hellebuck is a guy that has something to prove. I think his postseason stats really leave a lot to be desired. And he's got to kind of beat the big game acquisitions as well. But he's somebody that I think he played okay in Four Nations last year for the most part. He was excellent. In the first two round robin games against Finland and Canada. But when it came to it, he was not able to win the big game. So obviously, he is somebody that I sit there and I'm not fully confident in. But again,
Okay.
I still think obviously the team to beat in this is Canada. I don't even know why I preference that, but the reason I said that is because you put him in there against a team like Canada who has been so explosive offensively. It is a little scary. So that is something that I sit there and you know I would be on the fence with a little bit if I had to point one element to this team out of an area as we move forward in the later rounds.
With that, who is the most on the line to you? Is it Hellbuck or Matthews?
I think it's Matthews. I think
Yeah.
it's Matthews. I think just again the scope. I mean, there's different scopes between these two different players, and again, Matthews. Just all the criticism he gets. In the NHL, he got in four nations. Again, like I said, this is a player who scores 70 goals. He needs to step up and reach that level because we know on the other side of things, Connor McDavid is going to be there. Crosby, their top dogs. They are going to put up. There's no doubt that they will show up in the big moments. So I think Matthews, really for US, is that player that needs to step up and really lead the charge. And we've seen this. We've seen this in Toronto. We've seen this even here in the Olympics when he steps up. I really do think he is what elevates this team offensively. And I really do think he's a player that's got to step up. Yeah, because if Hellebuck has a rough start to the night, you have other options. I don't want to see Swayman, but you have Swayman. You also have Ottinger. So for Matthews, there is no guy behind him. Matthews is going to be the guy you ride or die with here. As the rounds progress. So I'm going with Matthews. I'm curious to see if you agree with me.
I don't, and this is like my hottest take is I think Hellebuck is right there because I do genuinely believe, aside from understanding that this is best on best, Austin Matthews, it's funny, like Four Nations really exemplified this conversation. Four Nations, Matthews has three chances, two of them in overtime. Binnington robs him. And Hellebuck surrenders an opportunity because of a defensive breakdown to the world's best player, Connor McDavid. I think you nullify the conversation of best on best and the situations those players were in last year, literally at this time last year. I think Hellebuck is right there, and I think it's not talked about enough. Austin Matthews is voted by his peers as the captain. We know he can score at will. He now leads the team in goals. I think Hellebuck, when we get into the deeper rounds of this, I think the way Team USA is going to have to defeat a team like Canada if they get there willingly to a gold medal match is they're going to have to survive some waves at points, survive some of that skill and then counter. And I believe that Austin Matthews can break through in the counter attack. I think the fear is with the goaltender like Hellebuck. Can he can he be the guy that when it's not like a moment against the best player in the world, when it's a siege of an attack, can he buckle down and survive? I think he's got a lot more on the line than is being credited for. Like, I think it's Matthews and Hellebuck 1A, 1B. I think a lot closer than maybe some other people believe.
Yeah, again, like I think they're both up there for sure. Especially, I think we're looking at this, or at least I am looking at this, and a lot of other people probably are looking at this through the lens of the NHL as well. But when it comes down to the
Yeah.
big game, you got to perform and you got to win the big game. And these are two players that have had their fair share of struggles. So yeah, they're gonna have to step up and be better.
Also, Steve-O, also, number one stat for a goaltender is wins, right?
Yep.
I'm not saying that Austin Matthews is he's wearing the C. He wears the C in Toronto. It was given to him after the Tavares handed it off, essentially. The organization made that shift. The Leafs have struggled the last 2 seasons. Like, there is a lot on the line for 28-year-old Austin Matthews. But for a goaltender, it's all about the wins. I mean, anyone on this team, I understand it's about the wins. But when you look back, there are 3 or 4 other forwards I think this team needs to count on that if they fail to do their job in their role, Team USA can lose. If Connor Hellebuck alone, like, I don't think Team USA's defense, I'm very critical of the choices. I think every player that's on that this defensive side of the puck um, is certainly capable of winning gold. I think for the forward group, they leave Jason Robertson home. That automatically brings up question marks about the construct of this team, right? Where it's like, well, now maybe guys that aren't 50 plus goal scorers are now being relied on to score big goals. So I think there's a little more to the forward group that you could criticize that if the team loses, you can look at and point to rather than the goaltender, right? Like, it's not like they're starting the United States second best goaltender over Hellebuck. Like, Hellebuck is the clear cut number one. So
Yeah,
that's my final point there.
I agree with that. I think we put a nice little cherry on top of that. Can move on to the next.
All right, Steve, you want to talk top 5 players overall? I hear.
I do, yes. Overall, I think the players I have on the bottom of the list might surprise some people. Maybe you. I don't know. We'll see. But obviously, I think the first two I gotta go with. You have to have McDavid on there. I mean, I don't need to explain that one. But I'm also putting Celebrini on there. For Canada, I think he's looked. If you're listening and you watch, you watch all the games like we have. I think he's looked great. For as young as he is. I think using his size and his skill at such confidence at this level, I think he's kind of made him one of the, I think, biggest takeaways for me at this point. So those are the only two players I have for Canada as of right now. But I really do think, kind of to tie this back to US, I think Canada's dominance in these early preliminaries, I think really distracts people from how well or how well rounded I think Team USA has been. I don't know if you would agree with that or not.
You want to talk Team Canada?
Yeah, we could talk. We want to go through the 5 players and then talk about Canada. And these are the only 2 players I have for Canada on the list. So now
Gotcha.
might be a good time to talk about Canada. But would you agree with that statement?
No, I do. Like, I think what you're saying is that Team USA has this structure that's like each line has an identity. Um, it's not just like full globetrotters. Am I getting that right?
Yes. Yep.
I think there's question marks around Binnington. He's been great right now, and we knew he's won a Stanley Cup, making 50 saves in a game 7. He then struggled to kind of assert himself as a really, a cornerstone starter for a team. The team's now going through kind of a rebuild, and they kind of went through a few lackluster years in St. Louis, NHL. Comes to 4 Nations, question marks there. He rises to the occasion. I would argue more than anyone else in that uh, short tournament. And then John Cooper says to start the Olympics, he didn't even question who was going to start in this Olympics, even though a lot of people wanted Logan Thompson. I think that verdict, like, is it wrong to think the verdict's still out on Jordan Bennington, like how he performs? There's
As
just like a 5% of me that's like, I don't know. He's just not like he rises to the occasion, but in the situation that he doesn't.
I agree with you. I think again, you can't. I mean, it's not really a question of what he's proven, in his recent track record. But I still agree with you on that. I just don't think. I don't know. I agree with you on that. I think we'll get a lot of people would disagree with that. But I would question. If I had to circle holes on their team, I think goaltending is still a question mark for them. And I think their defense is beatable. You got McCarr, but outside of that, who's stepping up? You got Harley, you got Theodore. I don't know. I still think that defense is beatable. Once David and Goliath meet. I think if Canada trips up, it will be their defense. But I think in a sense, they're still the LA Dodgers. They could still outscore all their problems. It doesn't matter. They still have the dogs. And what they've displayed offensively is very scary. It's not just the McDavid, the Celebrini line. I really like the Marner, Crosby, and Stone line. The way they get out and the way they get the puck out of their zone, I think has been very good. It's going to be no matter who's going up against that, it's going to be tough. Um, Stone is not always the fastest player, but I don't know. He's just a guy that's always in the right space at the right time. I don't know what it is. I mean, he has the luck of the puck for sure. I would say for Canada, I think the only line that has been underwhelming a little bit is that Hagel Suzuki line. I think that's been a little underwhelming in my view. I don't really know what you do to fix that, and honestly, I don't think you do anything because the other lines are performing at such a high level at this point. I really don't think you want to touch the other lines. Their power play is clicking, all around scary offensively. But again, goaltending, I'm agreeing with you. I'm questioning that. I'm questioning the defense a little bit too. I think that is something that especially us and whoever they go up against can kind of exploit that a lot. I see the holes on the side of the ship. It's doable. The question is offensively, how could you hold them? So that's what I got on Team Canada. I don't know if you want to respond before we go back to the our top five players overall.
I want to throw into the universe that we're going to get a gold medal USA Canada rematch, and there's going to be no upsets on the way there. But if we're just talking about the first two games, I certainly agree. I don't think they've given us reason to worry about the defense right now or Jordan Binnington. I think that's certainly a projection of like when it gets to a thicker situation. So I totally agree with you on those things. You cannot doubt that I actually think this team Canada might look better than the Four Nations team. Like they have locked in. They're at a different hotel so they don't, get sucked into any shenanigans. Like they really locked in. Connor McDavid arrived before the tournament to get acclimated to the time change and Italy. Um, the fact the players are that dialed, I think, is showing on the ice. And I think they have gotten a boost from some of the players that have interchanged from Four Nations to this team. And I certainly agree with you. And they had some players that were injured. No Braden Point, right? Celebrini added to the roster. And it seems like everything they've touched is kind of magic so far. They've completely trounced their group. And in a lot of ways, the comparisons with Team USA is that Canada, like, they didn't show a slow step anywhere on the ice. Like, Bennington didn't give us a reason to question him. You and I are questioning him because of other factors or like big game moments. Can he step up to that and meet the challenge, meet the maker? But right now, based on the round robin, I think this is as flawless as a team as you can see in hockey. And we probably will see this year in hockey, this calendar year. So, yeah, I mean, thoughts on Team Canada are simple, Steve. I think they are the team of the tournament.
Of course, they are the team of the tournament. I didn't think we need to preference that. Obviously, if you're paying attention, and hockey, that this is the team to beat. But I do think again the defense is not a problem, but I'm saying that is again something that can be exploited in the future. Alrighty, we can go back to our top five players. Do you have anybody from Team Canada? I only have two. So who
I'm
do you have?
I'm just gonna throw out my top five
Sure, go
in no
for it.
particular order. No particular order. McDavid, come on, no question. Celebrini, um, Brady Kachuk, UC Saros, and Slavkovsky, man. I mean, he's got to be. Actually, I would like to say that Slavkovsky is number one because he has had a pretty good year in Montreal, but maybe not to the level as his other number one overall pick counterparts in that group. Um, and I think that it's probably Celebrini or Slavkovsky, but I also do feel like Celebrini does have a lot more support in the X's and O's and the teammates he's playing with in terms of skill than Slavkovsky has. And Slavkovsky has made his team, uh, a surprise team in this tournament. So I'm going to take him at number one and then the rest of those guys.
That makes me happy. We're on the same page. I had Slavkovsky as well. I think the way that he's playing, not just alone the year that he's having in Montreal, but the way that he's played so far. Physically, I think he's been a force to reckon with on the ice. Scoring, and just the overall weight that he adds to Slovakia, I think he's been great. I think Slovakia could really be a threat moving forward. You look at where they've been in the past and where they are now. I think they really can be such a threat moving forward. Slavkovsky, I think he's shown why he's one of the most dynamic forwards internationally, right now. So I gotta agree with you on that. I had him on there. I had him at number three, but I would sentiment the same thing you said, no particular order. On the U.S. side of things, you got to put Brady on there. I think what he's done, and I also I toughled a lot with this last spot, and I'm gonna put Austin Matthews on there because I really do think moving forward, he really is such an X factor for Team US. You got to think once David and Goliath meet, he really is. When these two teams go to battle, such an X factor. And we've seen it. In the last game, once he steps up, it just eases all the pressure off US and elevates everyone's game. So I think he is a top five player. Um, Overall, he has that potential for US. So I got McDavid, Celebrini, Slavkovsky, Brady, and Austin Matthews as my top five overall.
All right, Steve. This one I could talk about all day. And we talked about a few names, right? The good, the bad, and the ugly to start. Really good, bad, and is this Team USA just right? Overall, whole tournament. Team player biggest surprise. I could name like 1,000, but starting with you, man.
Um, we'll start with you. Give me a second to think about that. I want to think of somebody that I haven't thought of yet.
I like that. Well thought out answer. All right. Steve, honestly, to me, Kyle Connor not rebounding and Jack Hughes being a major factor. I think they were kind of grouped together in Four Nations as disappointments, and the fact they've kind of gone even further away from each, they've gone opposite directions, interests me. I think Brock Nelson, third generation Olympian, the fact he's making the most of it. He was a player that coming into this tournament was grouped in with Miller and Trocheck as question marks while they were on the roster. I've liked his game. Now, was it against the you know toughest competition? No, but I like the fact that he's made himself a presence on this Team USA. Slavkovsky is surprise. I love that Team Italy came out and stunned Sweden. That was a great surprise. Um, yeah, really, those are the few off the top of my head that I can think of, and I'd like to see maybe one team make a run. I think Finland coming out of the gate slow was a surprise. Um, and I'll be honest, this is my other hot take of the tournament. Outside of the Hellbuck with the most on the line, I think Team Sweden is not as good as they're kind of being talked about. I just haven't been blown away by them. And maybe it's in the same boat as like the United States, but um, yeah, Sweden to me, like there's a lot of this talk that, well, if Canada or US had to meet Sweden, which will likely be the United States, if Sweden beats Latvia. If they meet them, there's a precursor that that'll be a tough game, and whoever wins that might have a tough time then playing a second great game again in the gold medal game. I just haven't been blown away by Sweden. Like none of their game has been like, oh, this player is significantly doing better than the rest of the tournament.
I agree with you on that. Maybe a player that come to mind, maybe Elias Pettersson. It was only 3 years ago that he was an 100-point player. And what was that, 2022, 2023? He was, well over a point per game. I don't think he's anywhere near as dynamic as he once was then. So I guess you could throw him on there. I was thinking Brock Nelson as well before you snagged him away from me. But I guess I got to circle back and go with Kyle Connor. I wanted to try and think of somebody that we haven't talked about on this epi, but I think for me, Kyle Connor is very surprising of how disappointed I am in him. I think this is a player coming off of Four Nations where what he's capable of, but just not really, it's not translating to any results. And again, it's not just like he's coming out there and making giving up turnovers and hurting play. He's just been invisible. And I said it earlier on the episode. For me, he doesn't move the needle for me offensively. Kind of been invisible, and I really don't think that he's a top 20 NHL player. I've really been disappointed in his play. So I'm curious. Do you think he's a top 20 NHL player?
Throwing the questions on this fine morning. I'm gonna say no off the top, just because if we're grouping in goaltenders and defensemen, then no, right? And definitely not this season.
Just offensively.
Oh, just forwards? Oh,
I gotta be honest
no.
with you.
I mean, he's at 25 goals this season. Like, I just don't think that, right? Certainly 25, 26. No, he's clearly, if you group in Four Nations last season and this year, regardless of how good or bad your team is, I don't think he's been a, top 20 now. Maybe fringe, like, but I haven't. It's not like I just calculated in my brain 20 players, but if I'm already just thinking about forwards, like you already have a pretty much top 10, top 12, top 15. I don't, the cutoff there's probably players, and I would even take guys that are like younger. Dare I say, like a Dylan Gunther over him right now, at least just where they're at. And obviously with this his inability to seize a role on Team USA, I think is also hurting that image. So
yeah.
All right, there's one more guy, Steve.
Sure.
This is a guy I wanted to talk about. Dylan Larkin and Jake Gensel. They don't have the most on the line now. I feel like we just haven't talked about them all episode. I actually would like to throw maybe McAvoy in there, Werenski in there, where like Werenski and McAvoy we haven't talked about, but it's because they're playing so well. And I've been really impressed by their game. I love that they're on Team USA. Those are guys you love to have on your team. But on the other side, the flip of the coin, I feel like Gensel and Larkin were huge factors in the Four Nations team. Like Boldy, Larkin, and Gensel to me were right up there with the impact of the Kachucks. And I feel like Larkin and Gensel, we just haven't had that full effect. And I understand Larkin's roles kind of changed on this team, but I think if they have any chances at a gold medal, they're going to have to be more impactful than they've been. I've been surprised by how little we've talked about them.
Yeah, thank you for reminding me. I was earlier when you were talking, I was thinking of Dylan Larkin. I agree with you with him. I agree with your point on him. Jake Gensel, not so much. I think he's going to be. I mean, he always finds the back of the net. He's another guy like Stone that he's always in the right spot at the right time. He's gonna come up and he's going to have his moment. So I'm not worried about Gensel. But Larkin, yes. Even in the Four Nations, like how crucial he was for US at that time. I think he overperformed a little bit there, and I wouldn't expect that same result, but still, even a little bit more than we've seen, recently. I would agree with you on that. I think his role has changed a little bit of what he was asked to do in Four Nation, what he's asked to do now on this Olympic team. But it's still, I think he's certainly a guy that I would say, yeah, I think I would want to see a little bit more of. And defensively, I'm not worried about McAvoy and the other guys. I think that they've played overall very they've played very fair overall. It just it's a matter of bend not break when you hit when you go up against Canada. So that's going to be interesting. Barring any major upsets. That will be, man. That is going to be so much fun to watch. I can't wait. I'm excited. You think of the middle school days when we used to leave class early in middle school, come home and watch some of these games. 10 plus years later, I mean, the same excitement. From us is there, and it's exciting. I love it.
Steve, one last question for you. Whose impact will be the greatest in the medal rounds?
Ooh, that's a good question. Um, I'll let you answer that one first.
All right, I got a few guys. The Kachucks and Tom Wilson, because for all the talk that Four Nations is going to be different, it's going to be more NHL gear than the Olympics. This is now a very NHL game at this Olympics, which I think wasn't expected, but now very quickly that's what it's become. I think their impact's going to be crucial physically. The chirp game, the stay out of my crease, the board battles, the hits that can change a game. And I also think some of the young guys, but Macklin Celebrini, right? Like if those guys come through for Canada, the youth, Macklin specifically, I think he can change uh, a gold medal game or a medal game on its head. Um, for Sweden, I think it's going to be their goaltending because I think that's either going to be what wins games for them or hurts them in the long run. For Finland, it's playing their game. Can Mikko Rantanen become an X factor? I feel like we just haven't talked about him at all. Um, so yeah, I think those guys are going to have the biggest impact in medal games.
I agree with you on those points. I mean, when you look at Sweden and some of these other teams, they only have like one or two X factors. But I mean, for the main ones on the U.S. Side of things, I'm going to be sticking to what I've said all episode long. Again, I think Austin Matthews really is a key player to this offense. If he's able to step up, I think it just eases the burden on everyone else. In terms of the U.S. I agree with you. I think Matt Tkachuk's got to step up a little bit more. A couple other key role players, if they can start playing a little bit better and up to speed, I think that'll get U.S. going. And on the side of Canada, I think I would want to see their defense be able to step up and play, a little bit more strongly. I think a lot, in their games. I think a lot of their games have been due to bad competition, and I think I could see the holes in their defense. And that Hagel Suzuki line, I'd want to see a little bit more. So I think that's a huge, X factor. And for the U.S., I'll go with the bottom six. I think the bottom six. I like the way the U.S.'s bottom six matches up against Canada. I think that is another area to exploit. And goaltending. Goaltending is going to be a big one. It all depends. It's not a question of who's starting. It's a question of whether you're going to show up in the big moments. All these questions are going to be answered very soon, and we'll be here at Puck Talk to wrap everything up and break it down. Whatever happens, man, I'm excited. I can't wait for for this next round of games to get going. Kind of sucks. Two Italian guys here, sitting there watch Italy get absolutely spanked. They could have put us out there on the ice, but at the end of the day, this is exciting because we all know the matchup that we're going to get in the end. So that's all my thoughts here. You got anything else to add before we wrap up, Gene?
No, I think hopefully the next time we're speaking, it's preview quarterfinal, and hopefully quarterfinal win, hopefully a gold medal preview, and pray to any deity you believe in that it will be a gold medal rematch USA Canada. So we'll be here because this is the best hockey Steve and I and you listeners. I know a lot of our listeners, obviously Ranger fans, are going to see all year. So and maybe next year too. So take this all in, soak it up.
Yep, this is our Stanley Cup. As bad as that sounds, it is, because that's all we got to look forward to. However, I can tell you what you guys can look forward to is everything here at Puck Talk CS. No matter what happens, future rounds, even past that, New York Rangers, we'll have everything here breaking it down at Puck Talk CS on our YouTube, on our Gram, Twitter, all platforms at Puck Talk CS. And always remember, it's just the luck of the puck.